Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're venturing into, a really fascinating area, the intersection of quantum physics and consciousness.
Yeah, it's a big one.
And this is something you, our listener, brought up, sharing some, really compelling sources that hint at this profound connection.
That's right. So in this deep dive, our mission really is to pull out the key insights from this material you shared.
Yeah, dig into how these seemingly separate worlds, the quantum physical and the psychological, might actually be deeply intertwined.
Exactly. We're looking at how the very fabric of reality, the quantum stuff, might connect with consciousness, which of course brings Carl Jung's work right into the frame.
Absolutely. We'll be looking at Jung's ideas alongside, quantum physics discoveries.
Mhm.
So maybe let's set the scene first. Think about the sort of classical science view.
Right, the old way of thinking.
Yeah, you had Descartes splitting everything mind or matter, thinking stuff or physical stuff.
A clean break.
And Newton built on that, didn't he? Matter as these tiny, solid billiard balls, basically.
Yeah, fundamental particles. If you couldn't touch it or measure it directly in that physical sense,
It wasn't quite real.
pretty much. That materialistic view got really locked in.
And Darwin brought that into biology, too, focusing on the physical side of evolution.
Which, according to the sources, led to this kind of segregative world.
Yeah.
Science over here, humanities over there.
Right, the objective versus the subjective.
And thinkers like Monod talking about humanity's total solitude in this seemingly indifferent universe. A bit bleak, really.
Definitely. But then enter Carl Jung,
Ah,
who, as our sources really stress, had, the courage to challenge all that.
yeah, he proposed these archetypes.
These powerful universal patterns existing outside our individual minds, right?
Exactly. And what he called a collective universal psychic system. Impersonal, even. Shaping our thoughts, our imagination.
Okay, so let's maybe start right there, at the foundation. What about the material world itself? How does quantum physics shake things up?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Because quantum mechanics, the science of the very small, atoms and molecules, it throws a major curveball at that classical materialism.
How so?
Schrodinger's work, for instance. He showed electrons in atoms aren't like tiny planets orbiting a sun.
Not particles in the old sense.
Not really. They exist more like standing waves,
Yeah.
or you could say forms of energy distribution pattern.
Forms, not just solid bits.
Okay,
And then Max Born, he took it further.
he did. Get this. Born figured out these waves aren't actually waves of anything physical, like water waves. They don't carry mass or energy in themselves.
But what are they?
They're probability waves,
A probability meaning.
meaning they're mathematical descriptions. They tell you the likelihood of finding the electron somewhere if you were to look.
So they're like equations, information.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
They're, in a way, empty of stuff. But, and this is the crucial part, it's how these probability waves interfere with each other.
Mhm.
That dictates how atoms bond, how molecules form, how they interact. That's what gives structure to everything we see.
Wow. Okay. So the solid world emerges from probabilities, from mathematical forms interacting.
That's the mind-bending implication. You
Mm.
trace matter down, 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 and you end up in a realm of, well, mathematical relationships forms, potentiality. Not solid stuff in the classical sense,
Which suggests the order we see isn't just built from material bits.
but that the order might come from a non-material level, like information is fundamental.
It's funny, that idea isn't entirely new, is it?
Not at all. Our sources bring this up too.
Pythagoras saying all things are numbers. Plato thinking of atoms as geometric shapes.
Right, the Platonic solids.
Even St. Augustine wrestling with things that weren't physical bodies.
And that quote from Nicholas de Cusa.
Number was the first model of things in the mind of the creator. It's striking, isn't it?
It really is. Ancient thinkers, mystics, without quantum labs, somehow intuiting this underlying mathematical formal reality. What does that suggest?
It suggests maybe reality has this formal layer underneath it all.
And if you connect that back to Jung, well, it gives his idea of archetypes a whole new context, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If non-material forms are fundamental to physical reality.
Then the idea of non-material forms, these archetypes, existing in some cosmic realm and influencing our minds.
Yeah, it suddenly sounds less out there.
Exactly. It gains a certain plausibility within this emerging scientific picture.
And Jung himself seemed to sense this connection. There's that quote.
Ah, yes.
It's not only possible, but fairly probable even, that psyche and matter are two different aspects of one and the same thing.
Psyche and matter, two sides of one coin.
Okay, so let's shift gears slightly. Let's talk about consciousness itself. The sources explore this idea of consciousness as potentially cosmic.
Right, moving beyond just individual awareness.
Mm.
And quantum physics offers another fascinating concept here. Wholeness, or non-locality.
Non-locality. That's the one where particles stay connected, right?
Yeah, once they've interacted, they can remain linked, instantaneously influencing each other no matter how far apart they are.
Like spooky action at a distance.
That's Einstein's famous phrase for it, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine you have two linked particles, you measure one, and you instantly know something about the other one, even if it's light years away.
Faster than light communication.
Well, it's not communication in the normal sense. You can't send Morse code with it. But the influence seems instantaneous. It points to this deep underlying interconnectedness.
A fundamental wholeness.
Exactly. And this wholeness is also reflected, the sources suggest, in the wave nature of particles within atoms. They're not just isolated points.
Okay, so if the universe has this underlying wholeness, what does that imply about the world we actually see?
Well, think about it. The world we experience isn't just pure chaos, is it?
No, it's pretty ordered, coherent.
So that coherence might reflect an underlying coherence in the quantum potentiality. And the sources propose this potentiality isn't just random static, but it's structured by, get this, thought-like informational patterns.
Thought-like ideas.
Almost like cosmic blueprints or fundamental patterns of information shaping reality. ETs, they call them in one source. Elementary thoughts, maybe.
Cosmic blueprints. That leads to a pretty radical idea about consciousness.
It does. The idea that maybe consciousness isn't just something our brains produce, like digestion.
But maybe it's a fundamental property of the cosmos itself.
That's the leap. There's even that quote in the material.
Which one?
The universe is conscious, and our thinking is the thinking of the cosmic mind, which finds consciousness in us.
Wow. Our thinking is the universe thinking through us.
Kind of flips the perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. And this resonates with Jung again, right? His interest in alchemy.
Absolutely. The philosopher's stone. Jung saw that not as making literal gold, but as a symbol.
Symbol for.
For individuation. That process of integrating the unconscious, making the invisible visible. Spiritualizing matter, materializing spirit, achieving psychological wholeness.
Wholeness.
All right.
He used that Gnostic term too, didn't he? Pleroma.
That's right, pleroma. Fullness, wholeness. It all ties together.
And his ideas about the self, the deeper center versus the ego, that fits too.
Yeah, the sources draw parallels there with religious language about, say, God and humanity needing each other. This interdependence.
Like that intense quote to Eric Neumann.
Oh, yeah. Powerful stuff.
God is a contradiction in terms, therefore he needs man in order to be made one. God is an ailment man has to cure.
It's provocative, but it speaks to that same idea. Wholeness arising from the interplay of seemingly opposite parts. The conscious and unconscious, the human and the cosmic potential.
Okay, so let's talk more about this realm of potentiality, this unseen source.
Right. The sources bring in Eddington here, Sir Arthur Eddington. His ideas were maybe seen as a bit controversial.
Yeah.
But they line up surprisingly well with Jung's thinking and these quantum ideas.
How so?
Well, Eddington was pointing towards this unseen realm too. A realm not of things, but of forms. Potential forms.
Like the probability waves.
Similar idea. Thought-like patterns that aren't just abstract ideas, but are real because they have the potential to actualize, to become manifest in our empirical world.
So the world we see is like an expression of this deeper formal realm.
That's the picture. The visible world emanating from this invisible potentiality.
And you said Eddington and Jung agreed on something specific.
Yeah, it's striking. Both seem to arrive at the idea that our own conscious thinking doesn't just originate in our individual brains, but it taps into or arises from this deeper cosmic, non-personal realm of forms or mind stuff.
Eddington used that term mind stuff.
He did. He talked about consciousness fading into subconsciousness and beyond that, something indefinite but yet continuous with our mental nature. This I take to be the world stuff. He saw physics itself, with its mathematical laws, as describing the structure of this fundamental mind stuff.
Wow. Okay. And there's a concrete example of this unseen realm having real effects in chemistry.
Yes, the concept of virtual states. Very important in understanding chemical reactions.
Virtual states. What are they?
They're like temporary, intermediate patterns or structures that molecules pass through during a reaction. You can't isolate them, they're too fleeting.
So they're invisible?
Invisible, yes, but crucial. They determine how the reaction happens, which products form, how fast it goes. Think about redox reactions, magnetism, or even the reactivity of oxygen, which we need to live. Virtual states are key.
So these unseen, non-isolatable states are directing the visible outcome.
Precisely. They're real entities because they have real effects.
And the sources connect this to inner images.
Yeah, like the inner images neuroscientist Gerald Huther talks about, guiding our actions, and of course to Jung's archetypal images.
As manifestations of the deeper, unknowable archetypes themselves.
Exactly. The archetype is the pure form. The image is how we experience it.
Hmm.
Just like the virtual state is the unseen guide for the observable chemical reaction.
This really bridges the gap, doesn't it, between the quantum and the psychological?
It seems to. And it connects modern science back to older wisdom, too.
So,
Well, these quantum wave functions, non-material forms guiding matter. It echoes Jung's archetypes, doesn't it?
it does.
And maybe even Aristotle's idea of God as pure form.
Right, and the term virtual states itself. Where did that actually come from?
Ah, this is fascinating. It wasn't coined by a quantum chemist initially.
No.
No, it was used centuries earlier by Meister Eckhart.
The medieval mystic.
The very same. He talked about visible things emerging from divine light through the actualization of their virtual being.
Whoa, the same term.
The exact same term, virtual being or virtual state, appearing independently in the mind of a 14th century mystic and a 20th century quantum chemist.
That's uncanny.
It's stunning, as the sources say. It really
Yeah.
suggests, well, maybe our minds are connected to some common cosmic realm of thoughts.
Jung's archetypes again.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you could almost see Jung's archetypes as like virtual state functions of the mind.
And quantum wave functions as the archetypes of physical reality.
That's the parallel being drawn, both stemming from this non-empirical cosmic source. Cosmic consciousness, maybe.
Which fits with Jung's quote, that the world inside and outside ourselves rests on a transcendent background, is as certain as our own existence.
A transcendent background connecting inner and outer.
Okay, one more key Jungian idea to connect. Synchronicity.
Ah, synchronicity. Meaningful coincidence.
Right. Not just random chance, but a psychological state coinciding with an external event, linked by meaning, not cause and effect.
Exactly. Jung said it involves something other than the probability of chance.
So the two parts are an inner image becoming conscious,
Yeah, like a dream, an intuition, a premonition bubbles up into awareness.
and then
And then at the same time, or very close in time, an objective event happens in the outside world that mirrors or reflects the meaning of that inner image.
those moments that just make you go, wow, what are the odds? But feel deeply meaningful.
Precisely. And the sources suggest this makes sense in this quantum view of reality.
How does the quantum view explain synchronicity?
Well, remember the two domains, the visible empirical world
Uh-huh.
and the hidden non-empirical realm of potentiality of non-material forms.
Right.
You can maybe think of the visible world as the universe's consciousness
Okay.
and the hidden realm as its unconscious.
Interesting analogy.
So if the same underlying form or pattern exists in that potential realm,
Yeah.
it could manifest simultaneously, both as a thought or image in our mind, tapping into the cosmic unconscious, and as an event in the external world, the cosmic consciousness.
Because they originate from the same meaningful pattern in the underlying wholeness?
That's the idea.
Yeah.
The meaning connects them because the universe itself, in this view, is an interconnected, aware whole, a cosmic spirit maybe, like Hegel's suggested, thinking in us and around us.
So synchronicity becomes a glimpse of that underlying unity.
A manifestation of the connection between mind and matter, inner and outer.
Okay, so wrapping this up, Jung, through psychology, seems to have uncovered these properties of the universe.
Mhm.
Mental properties almost.
That classical physics had kind of pushed aside.
Yeah, ignored or denied. But now quantum physics seems to be bringing them back into the scientific conversation.
In a new language, but the resonance is there.
So if the old materialism isn't the full story, what is? What takes its place?
Well, the picture emerging from these sources points towards this non-empirical realm, a realm of real, potent, but invisible forms.
Forms that can become thoughts and can also become material structures.
Exactly. Potential waiting to actualize. So the conscious empirical world we know, it emanates from this deeper layer of mind-like forms.
Which leads to that idea, quantum physics as a kind of psychology of the cosmos.
And Jung's psychology as a physics of the mental universe.
Two sides of the same coin again.
It seems that way.
And this isn't just a modern idea, is it? You mentioned resonances with older traditions.
Right. The sources bring in Hindu Advaita Vedanta, for instance, Sankara's concept of Atman,
Atman meaning.
the true self, the ultimate reality, which is wholeness, Brahman.
Mhm.
It's not something you attain, but something that's always already present.
You just have to realize it.
Exactly. By removing the ignorance, the illusion of separation. The analogy used is like finding a necklace you were already wearing but had forgotten about.
So that potential for realization, that wholeness, is innate.
It's always there, underlying everything. Just like this potential realm suggested by quantum physics and Jung,
It really suggests a radical interconnectedness then.
profound interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Observer and observed, mind and matter. Maybe not so separate after all.
Far less separate than classical science ever imagined.
Definitely.
So, as you, our listener, reflect on all this, maybe the provocative thought to leave you with is this. Could your own inner world, your thoughts, feelings, intuitions, be much more intimately connected to the outer world than we usually think?
Could they both be arising from the same shared fundamental ground, this non-material realm of potential?
It's a deep question, isn't it? It really invites us to reconsider the nature of reality itself and our own place within it, especially when you see these surprising links between the strangeness of quantum mechanics and the depths of the human psyche. Something to ponder.